Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another Breakfast with Blaha, and today I'm having steak and stir-fry Asian vegetables. Not really stir-fry, they're steamed in my Instant Pot. Minor note, I don't actually eat raw vegetables. I don't usually advise it. That's probably a whole nother topic. Again, it's understanding basic nutrition and why that is. But the point is, let's get over to talking about recovery. All right, this is one of the problems we run into when we discuss training volumes, because there's phases in my training where I'll be making progress and people say, hey, your volumes are really, really high. I thought you said, we need to be able to recover from volume. Some of your clients run lower volumes than you do when we see their blogs. What's going on here? What people have to understand when we start looking at volume studies in recovery or muscle growth, what you have to keep in mind is the recovery end. In other words, in theory, if you can sustain the workload through a workout, right? You can sustain the workload through a workout and keep the workloads high and recover from it. You can run really high volumes of training, but you have to recover from it. And the recovery for most people is the hardest part. And that's why we have to limit volumes. The majority of people out there do not have perfect lifestyles. And when you don't have a perfect lifestyle, you might find 12 work sets per week for a muscle group is your optimal volume. It's not that you can't stimulate more, it's that you can't actually grow from more as a person in your current situation, if that makes sense. Again, think about anabolics. Why do so many heavy dosers get away with really high volumes of training and grow amazingly well? Because they recover from it better. But they probably have other factors involved, not just the gear, because usually people are willing to use very high amounts. What else are they doing? They're probably doing a lot of things to help with their recovery. They're probably eating enormous amounts of protein and everything else. So that's something to think about. And the other thing to think about is the recovery elements of individual exercises. Some of the best exercises are really hard to recover from. I mean, perfect example. How often do you hear us say that the deadlift can be really hit or miss as a hypertrophy exercise? It can be a good hypertrophy exercise, but it usually isn't. See how that nuance works? That's not a flip-flop. That's explaining there's nuance to this. It's not a yes or no. So why is that? All right, deadlift. Extremely high stimulus. And people who say, well, it's a partial for a lot of muscles. Yeah, it is, but go still look at the EMGs and other stuff that you have. It may be a partial, but it hits as good of activation on a ton of muscles as any other exercise. Look at the hamstring on a conventional deadlift. Look at the rectus femoris and the quads. Look at the lats. I mean, realistically, a work set for reps of deadlifts, we can count as a full set towards every single one of those muscles. Some people don't think of the deadlift as a quad or a lat exercise, but it absolutely is. Our issue, the recovery end. Go do 5 work sets, close to limit sets of deadlifts. The recovery end is hard. The recovery side is hard. Not that it can't give you enormous amounts of stimulus and muscle growth. It's just hard as hell to recover from it. You better have your programming perfect. You better have your life in order. But if you do, it'll work. But again, this is why many coaches don't like to use it for hypertrophy. I have a tendency to be leery of it, especially with a lot of my clients and with my advice that I give you guys. So this is a factor. The other things to look at is going to be total inflammation in the tendons and things. And a lot of that we could discuss reps versus volume and picking bigger versus smaller movements. But realistically, what else are we talking about? Well, gear matters, but what about lifestyle? Hey, if you are eating higher amounts of protein, higher amounts of polyunsaturated fats, you have no dietary deficiencies, things like that, what ends up happening? Could you handle more sets per week and grow from them? It's not that you're not growing from the 10 or 12, it's could you grow slightly more from the higher volumes, or are you going to be one of the people who you gain less? Because that's what people need to remember. When you add volume that you don't recover from, it's not that you just don't see extra gains, you actually grow less. This is what the studies show, most of them. You grow less. If those things are in order, probably recover from it better. How about sleep? You're sleeping 6 or 7 hours a night versus 8. Is that extra hour every night, right? Is that going to let you do 3, 4, 5 more sets per body part per week and actually benefit from them? Possibly so. But the sleep, the nutrition, those are absolutely enormous. They're enormous. And I'm not talking about supplements, overpriced supplement blends. Certain supplements can help with recovery, but they're all really cheap. Stuff like fish oil, taurine, creatine. Stuff's all pennies. It doesn't cost anything really. Individual ingredients. With some data showing this. And then here's one of the big ones. How about stress management and your attitude? One thing I spend a lot of time with clients on. When I have clients who have anxiety problems, I remind them, stop caring about certain things. And that upsets people. They're like, it doesn't work that way. Yes, it does work that way. It absolutely works that way. Right? I'm someone who's suffered from depression in the past. I have suffered from PTSD, and I'm not going to get into that because people don't. They seem to confuse that with something else. But yeah, I've had these things. You know what? It's a choice in your head. It absolutely is. Your anxiety, how much you stress about things, is a choice that you make. No one makes you get angry. No one makes you get upset. Someone does an action, something happens in your life, and you choose what you think about it. Right? Whether it's a conscious choice or not is not always, but if you step back, reassess, you can choose what you think. And what you feel is based upon what you think. Emotions are not the guiding cause of things. They're thought-based. So the way that you get stressed, the way that you handle that stress is a conscious choice. Stress management is a big deal for training recovery. Now, for a lot of people, their training is a stress relief, which is good, but here's the problem. When you have someone who has anxiety, and then that becomes their outlet, when they miss a workout because they didn't get a good night's sleep and they need to push it off or whatever, what happens? They get anxiety. They double dip into their recovery. So just be careful of using it as tools. But your stress management, perfect example. There's a reason I ban all trolls and nonsense in my comment, just that people think it's me being petty. It's not. I'm a master's lifter training at a very, very, very high level. Anything that gives me any stress interferes with my gains. Me banning them is stress relief, because rather than deal with, the stress of the annoyance, I hit the button and I laugh. Stress goes down, recovery goes up. In short, they're banning trolls and basically just banning fucktards and morons actually helps my gains. Just food for thought. But that's what I mean for you guys. Putting up with things that stress you. Get them out of your life. And I don't care if it's a person, get them out of your life. If they stress you out, they interfere, get rid of them. Either tell them, look, you need to stop doing this, we need to sort this situation, or you have to go. And I don't care if it's your brother, your sister, your wife. Well, they want to be in your life. They need to be a productive and useful part of your life. That's an example. And that sounds harsh, but it's like, don't complain when you don't recover and you're stressed out if you don't make the choice to do that. Get rid of the toxic people in your life. And get rid of the toxic people on the internet. Resolves these issues. Just one example. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.